La Asamblea General.
The General Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Rashad Mohammed Al-Alimi, President of the Presidential Leadership Council of the Republic of Yemen. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Rashad Mohammed Al-Alimi, President of the Presidential Leadership Council of the Republic of Yemen, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, Your Excellency, Mr. Dennis Francis, the President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Majesties, Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this new session of the United Nations is held as we face new and complicated environmental, political, and economic challenges. Therefore, we all need new solutions, and we need to change our traditional manner to address these challenges. We also need to put an end to the suffering of the Yemeni people. The slogan of this session truly meets the aspirations of our Yemeni people, so that we can rebuild trust in our institutions and reignite solidarity in order to support sustainable developments towards peace, prosperity, and progress for all. The members of the Presidential Leadership Council would like to commend the unified position of the international community that supports the constitutional legitimacy, the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Yemen and the non-interference in its international affairs. We also commend this unified political position of the international community towards Yemen. We also thank our brethren in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates for their solidarity with our people. Their positions represented a strong fence to prevent the collapse of the institutions of the Yemeni state. They also supported our resistance in the face of Houthi militias supported by the Iranian regime. Mr. President, we had to rebuild our institutions. We had to reestablish a presidential leadership council based on partnership, building peace, and ending the war. However, despite this important transformation and despite the regional and international momentum to achieve peace, however, peace remained elusive despite the compromises from the Yemeni government. We thank our brethren in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Sultanate of Oman for their efforts, and we thank the envoy for their efforts. We do hope that the militias will recognize the truth that only a state that is based on the rule of law and equal citizenship will help us to make sure that our country is stable and safe. These are the demands of the legitimate government. We know that we need partnership in order to build our country, in order to reach a bright future. Today, I don't believe that we have enough time or we have enough compromises to make in order to convince the Houthi militias to change their positions. We can even predict their intentions for decades to come. If we do that, this approach will lead the Yemeni people back to the ages of ignorance and oppression. Our country can even become a hotspot to export terrorism and to launch a regional and international conflict that cannot be contained through diplomatic means. Therefore, any complacency from the international community or if we deal with the militias as a de facto authority, this means that oppression, the violations of freedoms, this behavior we will not be able to eradicate this behavior easily. We know that the Houthi militias only use peace agreements as a way in order to delay further and acquire further resources. This is why they shirked previous agreements, the latest of which the Stockholm Agreement. Therefore, we reaffirm the need to have the right guarantees for peace. It should be based on the 3 terms of references that were agreed upon at the national, regional, and international levels. We need to respect international legitimacy pursuant to the Saudi initiative. Furthermore, a sustainable peace should be based on justice, fairness, and addressing pending key national issues. Any peace agreement or any measures to build trust, they should be able to achieve tangible results in order to alleviate the suffering of the Yemeni people, so that we can make sure that those who benefit are the victims of the conflict, notably women and children. Sustaining peace and ending the war, this is the only way to guarantee that the Yemeni people will be able to build their state institutions that guarantee and protect their rights and freedoms and equality among citizens. And also build good neighborly relations with our brethren in the GCC countries. Today, I believe there is a sure path towards peace by rekindling the trust of the Yemeni people in international legitimacy and in their national government. For that to happen, we need to support the legal government. We need to strengthen the economy so that the government can provide services, so that we can put an end to the militias, so that we can build a brighter future promoted by UN envoys everywhere. I also believe that our international system must protect international peace and stability. It should support the will of the people and their national governments. This could be achieved today easily with the eases of access to information, with determining facts. However, we need to prioritize the will of the people so that we can strengthen their trust in this institution and the international community. We are not trying to shirk our responsibilities or to blame the international community for our failures. No, we need to believe that superpowers should send a strong message to militias, not only in Yemen, but all over the world, that they should not overturn constitutional legitimacies, so that we can end any wishes armed groups could have to establish entities that compete with legitimate governments. Mr. President, Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, to restore trust and achieve progress in the Yemeni dossier, we must recognize that a track based on international humanitarian intervention should be reconsidered and should be addressed so that it is in line with international law and efforts to combat terrorism, rebellion, and armed groups. We welcome the efforts of the United Nations to move from relief interventions in my country towards sustainable development. This transformation should also include financial pledges through the Yemeni Central Bank, the recognized Yemeni Central Bank, in order to strengthen our national currency and to make sure that these funds do not fall in the hands of armed militias. This track contradicts with the international rhetoric which calls for an improvement in the Yemeni economic indicators at a time when their international operations are going through institutions under the control of Houthi militias. Although Houthi militias continue with their arbitrary measures to violate the independence of the banking sector, the confidentiality of its operations, and to turn this sector into a network for laundering money. Moving forward with this approach means that the institutions of Yemen, this member state in the United Nations, will remain weak, will remain underfunded, and will not have the necessary resources to deal with these cross-border challenges. Furthermore, these policies could further feed the war economy, will allow for the flow of funds through banking channels that are not accountable. The humanitarian intervention of the Yemeni government proves that this support improves basic services to save the lives of millions of men, women, and children, to strengthen the prospects for peace. We choose to promote development and prosperity and not violence, death, and hatred as Houthi militias do. From this very rostrum last year, I have said that every delay from the international community to be more firm when it comes to the Yemeni dossier, the losses will be greater, and Houthi militias will continue with their cross-border threats. They will continue to commit grave violations of human rights, the same human rights that this institution has been promoting for the last 70 years. This year, we have witnessed an increase in the threats of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, supported by Houthi militias and by the Iranian regime with money, weapons, and intelligence support. They also share the same Takfiri ideology. As I have said a year ago from this very rostrum, the public budget of our state showed great indicators since the start of the war. We were able to improve services, create job opportunities. However, this momentum stopped as a result of Houthi terrorist attacks against oil facilities. I take this opportunity to say, were it not for the generous donation from our brethren in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a grant of $1.2 billion to support our public budget, we would have been unable to honor our obligations, including the disbursement of salaries. We also commend in this regard the humanitarian and development pledges from our brethren in the United Arab Emirates, our friends in the United States, the EU, the UK, and other regional and international partners. Despite these humanitarian interventions, allow me to say that Houthi militias escalated recently their threats. They targeted navigation routes in the Red Sea, in the Bab al-Mandab Strait, and the Gulf of Aden. They've used these as military areas. They've tested new weapons. They've targeted commercial ships and tankers. That means that these militias, supported by the Iranian regime, continue to destabilize the region, to undermine efforts in order to renew the truce and resume the political process. And today, they flaunt their military capabilities on the 21st of September, which is the day when they overturned the legitimate government. Today, we reaffirm the need to guarantee the freedom of international navigation to combat extremism, terrorism, piracy, and support measures to prevent the proliferation of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, notably the Iranian nuclear weapon, their ballistic missiles, and their role in sabotaging the region. We call on the international community to condemn these blatant Iranian interventions in the affairs of my country and to submit it to sanctions pursuant to resolutions of international legitimacy. In this regard, we call on member states to commit to the arms embargo and to prevent Iran from providing its militias with military capabilities such as ballistic missiles and drones used to launch terrorist attacks against innocent civilians. The Presidential Leadership Council and the government remain committed to all international agreements and conventions, including the protection of children, and to make sure that they do not participate in the armed conflict. We also provide the necessary guarantees for the work of international organizations and make sure to facilitate the delivery of assistance to all those in need. We have also established an independent national committee to investigate allegations of violations of human rights. All agreements signed by the UN with Houthi militias have not been implemented yet. The Houthi militias continues to recruit children and to send them to battlefields in full view of the international community. Houthi militias violate human rights daily. They impose restriction on travel, work, and the education of women. They oppress and kidnap journalists. We would like to reaffirm our firm position regarding the Palestinian issue. We will continue to support the path towards peace, towards a comprehensive and just solution for this Palestinian issue on the basis of resolutions of international legitimacy and the Arab Peace Initiative in a way that would guarantee that the Palestinian people will be able to establish their independent state. We also support peace in the Sudan, and we support the efforts of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the US in this regard so that this country can once again enjoy security and stability. We also express our condolences to Libya and the Kingdom of Morocco for the victims of the tornadoes and earthquakes, and we thank the countries that supported both countries, especially Egypt, as we witness an increase in the risk of climate change. I thank you. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Presidential Leadership Council of the Republic of Yemen for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.